G'day everyone, this is George speaking to you, and I want to talk to you about today's message of hope for the 29th of May 2026. So let me share with you one of my stories. It begins by saying the package was already signed. Yeah, I had agreed to the redundancy terms in my job. Everything was done. And then a colleague pulled me aside and said, "Did you know what happens to your super on your annual leave when it gets folded into the payout?" No, I don't. The answer, as it turned out, was nothing. Nothing? But you see, the employer wasn't required to pay superannuation on annual leave paid out as a part of a retrenchment package. It's legal, it's documented, and completely within the rules. I had racked up quite a few weeks of annual leave, you see. But the superannuation on every one of those weeks, gone. I had this confirmed later with a lawyer who told me plainly that yes, that's how exactly it works. Yeah. Now that colleague told me what I needed to know precisely, one conversation too late. Yeah, sometimes I wish I didn't know about it. Anyway, it's done. Now you might be thinking, where was HR in all of this? That's a fair question, right? Human relations. A story crossed my path recently about a tech CEO who fired his entire HR department. I'd never heard of a story like that before. Well, it was said that they were creating problems that didn't exist, the HR department that is. And the internet largely applauded. It was quite an interesting read, I thought. Now I understand the reaction. I once raised a concern about a manager, let's just say with a colourful approach to workplace language. And of course, HR's response was essentially, "Oh yes, he's like that." Like they've just brushed it off without a second thought. And I want to be fair here. One HR person, one of them, from a separate company, did something I haven't forgotten. You see, I was hospitalized unexpectedly for nearly 2 weeks. When I was in there, and the company sent me some nice things to my home to cheer us up. And when I came back to the office, started working again, she just helped me juggle the leave categories in the system, computer system. So we ended up used up unused sick leave and found other non-annual leave balances and made sure I was still getting paid without touching my annual leave. So she was brilliant in that sense. I really appreciated it. She didn't announce it, but I found it when I came back, yeah? She helped me out. Now, that was genuine grace from one person doing the job well. So well done to you. As you can see, I'm not here to bury HR entirely. I'm not here to bag them all. That's not the point. But the point is this. Whether HR is excellent, mediocre, or apparently absent, none of that changes what happened when my colleague pulled me aside the signature, after the signature was dry. When you sign, yep, this is the deal. I had assumed someone in the system was watching out for me, you see. That assumption, looking back, was comfortable, but it was also expensive in the end, wasn't it? Now, before I go on, I'll be releasing a resource in coming weeks, specifically built to help you prepare for retrenchment before it arrives. So not afterwards, okay? Details will be coming soon. I'm almost finishing up and releasing it to the public. So stay close to this channel. I'll be announcing it soon. Okay, let's go to a Bible reading. This time from Proverbs chapter 16, verse 18. It says, "Pride goes before destruction, and a haughty spirit before a fall." Now, I used to read that and picture someone loud. I could imagine it. It's chest out, talking over the room, certain of their own importance. That wasn't me. I was reasonable, experienced, and I knew how all these things work. Except that I didn't. Yeah? Sitting with that verse after the colleague conversation, I had to admit something uncomfortable. What I had wasn't arrogance. It was quite a kind of pride, really, isn't it? The assuming kind. There's someone who would have told Kine. Who would have told me. And here's what I've come to understand about the particular variety. It doesn't feel like pride at all, really, but it feels like reasonable confidence, like some great experience. It feels surety. And surely the contract will roll over. Surely I'll hear back Monday. Surely HR has come across my entitlement. Now, really? That word, surely, is worth paying attention to because it is usually the last thought before the floor shifts. And I know this because it happened to me more than once. Are you ready? Well, I was in Melbourne. And of course, some of me knows that I have a background in finance and mortgage brokering. And a real estate agency needed a go-to mortgage broker. Someone with embedded with the firm, reliable, a person clients got referred to, right? So I went for the interview. I felt good about it. It was good enough that I didn't bother applying for another role whose deadline fell on that same weekend. I was that confident, right? Well, guess what, George? The owner was supposed to come back to me on Monday. Yeah, Monday came, but nothing happened. Tuesday, same, no results. In fact, there was no communication. And at some point, I could tell you exactly when. The silence became the answer. I had to sit with the fact that the other deadline had passed while I was busy being confident. Taiwan was the second time. I was holidaying with my relatives. I was in a restaurant in Taipei. Like I said, it's good food. I felt very relaxed. Then I opened my phone between courses and found an email from my recruitment agency. Unfortunately, my IT contract would not be renewed. Now, the project wasn't finished, so I really thought surely they would extend it, but they didn't. That's the reality. But there you go. So 2 countries with 2 different industries and 2 seasons of my life. But the same assumption, right? The same word, surely. Now, friends, what are you assuming right now? About the stability of your role, maybe? About what happens to entitlement if things change? What about whether someone in your organization is paying attention to the details on your behalf? Now, the super rule I discovered after my retrenchment, it's not an error or technically someone bent doing something terrible. It is simply a rule that exists I didn't even know about, and that cost me money, and I could have had I asked one question before I signed rather than afterwards. Yes, my colleague did me a favor in a sense, but it was afterwards. Now, who's going to tell you it will be before or after the signature is dry if you are in that situation? Nobody's going to come to tap on you on the shoulder before the package lands on your desk. That's not how sometimes this works. But the preparation has to come first, right? So let's go back. Proverbs 16, verse 18, because I hope it makes a lot of sense. Let's read it again, yeah? Pride goes before destruction and a haughty spirit before a fall. Now, I'm not reading that as the loud man in the room anymore. I'm reading that as the man who didn't make the call on Sunday to ask about the other role. The man who assumed the unfinished project would protect him. Wrong. The man who signed a redundancy paperwork without asking what happens to the super on those annual leave weeks. That was my big fat mistake. And that is the haughty spirit. The one that whispers, hey, you've got enough experience. Someone would have flagged it if there was something to flag. So what God is offering instead is humility as a financial strategy. Yeah, so not self-flagellations. It's not paranoia, just a quiet practical willingness to ask the question before the moment passes. Did I mention in the coming weeks, I'll be releasing something that walks through exactly what preparation before retrenchment actually looks like? You know, the questions to ask, what documents to understand, the things to have sorted before you ever need them sorted. Now, I've seen enough of what the alternative looks like, and believe me, I want the better for you than that. Now, the colleague who pulled me aside, I'm grateful to him. I've learned a lesson. I'm not going to do it again. But I thought about that moment many times since. I wasn't angry with HR. You can't, right? Let it go. Not even about regret about the money. Not really. but with the sober recognition that I was waiting to be told. And that, my friend, is today's message of hope. So, if you enjoy these videos, please be a good person, subscribe to my channel, give it a thumbs up, and share these videos far and wide. I'll see you on the next one. You take care. Bye-bye.